Yeah. Yeah. What's good, y'all? What's good, man? We back. We back. Woo. Let's go, baby. Let's go, man. First and foremost, all right, welcome on in. Philly Take with RB. First off, I want to apologize. Your boy goes on one vacation, and I come back and forget how to set up a live stream. Like, what's wrong with me, man? What's wrong with me, man? But I want to say shout out to the Sixers, man. Because for once, they didn't make a trade while I'm on the plane, have no Wi-Fi. They didn't make a trade while I'm out sitting on the middle of the beach, no Wi-Fi. They waited till I got back. Matter of fact, I just stepped back in the door as this happened. I literally just got back in the door and I see, boom, Shams Charania, the Philadelphia 76ers. First thing I saw on like the little tweet preview was the Philadelphia 76ers. And I said, uh-oh, here we go. There was a lot I wanted to talk about today. I was planning to make a video. Obviously, we will be live for the game later. We're back at it. Lots to talk about. While I was gone, a monumental trade of Luka Doncic out of nowhere, which actually leads right into this. So we'll get into it. We'll talk about what it means. But ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. All right, hit the like button if you're in the chat. Let's push this stream around to other people. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we'll keep you up to date. Everything trade-wise, everything news-wise. But we are back, and apparently at the perfect time as well, as we have a trade to announce. Hold up. I actually put a siren on my soundboard before I left for the trip, just in case. So it's time to blare the siren, baby. Drop some fires in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. The sirens are going off because we have a trade to announce. All right, baby. We have a trade to announce. The first domino has officially fallen. The Dallas Mavericks are trading Quentin Grimes and a second-round pick to the Philadelphia 76ers for Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin, in his first year as a Philadelphia 76er, you think about the contract, you think about obviously his injury history, right? He's been hurt this year a lot. He's been one of the guys that have been out 4 or 5 times. But Caleb Martin has been out and in the middle of a hip injury that he's trying to recover from, and he actually has been listed as questionable the last couple of days, is now on the move to the Dallas Mavericks. And my first initial reaction when I look at this and I think is, wow, interesting. Interesting. And here's why, okay? When I look at the Mavericks side of this, I think they're doing what makes sense for them. They go out and they trade Luka, which, I mean, I'll get into my thoughts on that in a little while. I've been waiting. I've been absolutely dying to talk about that. Just didn't want to make a video from the middle of the beach with no Wi-Fi. But that was absolutely idiotic. But now the Mavericks are in full win now mode. So they're saying, hey, we got to get as many cheap vets as possible to help Kyrie and Anthony Davis. We have to win now, because if we don't win, our fan base, who's literally carrying a Luka Doncic casket to the games, is going to revolt on our ownership. So from the Mavs side, I think this makes sense. They're trying to get a win now vet over a younger player who has more of an upside to develop later on. But when I look at the 76ers, they trade Caleb Martin, who is on a pretty valuable contract. And I know he has had a shaky year. I know he's been up and down, and there have been a lot of times where we're sitting there with the old Sixers saying of, how did we trade for a veteran just for him to come here and look like he forgot all basketball skill and look like he forgot how to play the game, right? So there have been a lot of times that we've thought that. However, as the season has went on, as the games have gone on, when he's been on the floor, Caleb Martin has actually started to look a lot better. He started to play better, get back to a little bit of a resemblance from those Miami playoff days, right? A guy who can put it on the floor a bit. He's kind of like a jack of all trades. Like, he does a little of everything, right? He's a bit of a scrappy rebounder, defender. But the problem is he has not been on the floor. Now, the Sixers do get a second-round pick in this trade. I'm curious to hear what pick that is. I heard a couple rumblings already that it might be a pick that they already had. So they kind of take their own pick back in a trade. But I am a little puzzled by the Sixers' decision, the first decision at least, to trade Caleb Martin. And what that tells me is that one of two things. One, the Sixers are either trying to get younger or trying to free up cap space, right? And trying to make another move. Maybe it is keeping Gershon Yabusele in the offseason. Maybe they're trying to, free up the flexibility and the money to be able to pay him in free agency because he has been such an amazing role player. Or maybe, they're trying to just get, I don't know. Maybe there's going to be a couple more moves to follow. Like, I think that is really what will tell the whole story. Like, maybe it'll be Kelly Oubre next, or I don't know, KJ Martin. But you look at Caleb Martin's contract, and I mean, he's on a pretty favorable contract, for a role player. Sorry, that's Quentin Grimes. Let me pull up the Sixers cap table. I thought I had it up. Here it is. Let's look at the Sixers cap table real quick. I mean, you look at Caleb Martin, and he's only on the books for $8.1 million this season. And the Sixers had him on a 4-year contract. So, as the value appreciates for some of these role players, I mean, Caleb Martin was on a really good contract. Did they take him off? They already took him off. Come on, Spot Track. Come on, man. You guys are too quick. Hold on. Let's go to the Mavericks. So, I'm definitely a bit puzzled that Caleb Martin got moved already. You look at his contract, $8.1 million this year, $8.5 million next year, $8.9 million in 2026, and then 9.3 player option in 2027. So I am surprised with the value of that contract. If you remember when he got signed in the offseason, he was supposed to actually sign for more money, but his agent botched the situation with Miami, and he ended up having to take less money, come to Philadelphia, and he really has not had that good of a showing this season because he has not been on the floor that much. So in terms of the Sixers, I think, one, they're trying to get a bit younger, a bit more athletic. And if we talk about Quentin Grimes here, which we'll do in a second, I think it's a pretty good player that you take back. I mean, give me your initial thoughts in the chat of Quentin Grimes and, what your thoughts are on him. Definitely has bounced around to some different situations this season. Another tidbit here from Mike O'Connor. He says, I have to imagine that part of the appeal for the Sixers here is the ability to shed some tax money this year while opening up some flexibility for the offseason. Could be part of an effort to sign Yabu to the full MLE. We will see. Regardless, gives this trade a solid B. I don't want to sit here and act like Caleb Martin is not a good player, because he is. And he shows up when it matters most, which is in the playoffs. And if you go back to that Christmas game against the Celtics, I mean, we know Caleb Martin is literally the Celtic killer. So they're probably celebrating over there in Boston right now. But, you give up a guy who's a bit older. It was actually interesting when I pulled up the stats here. You look at Caleb Martin, his first year in the league was 2019, and he's currently 29 years old. And then you look at Quentin Grimes, his first year was 2021, so only a couple years later, but he's only 24. And when we look at Quentin Grimes, he's played in 47 games this season. He's averaging 10.2 points per game, shooting just a tick below 40% from three, 3.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists. I like the player. I do. He showed a lot of flashes early with the New York Knicks. Back in 2022, he was averaging 11 points per game. And then it got to a point where he kind of fell out of the rotation with Tibbs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why. Maybe they, I mean, there's a ton of reasons. I'd have to go back and kind of look into that more. But I just remember he showed a lot of potential early. And then he kind of dipped off a bit. And then he was traded to the Detroit Pistons, and he only ended up playing 6 games. I think he had an injury, and he just never really played for them. And then he was traded this past offseason to the Dallas Mavericks. But overall, you get a guy who can knock down some threes, decent defender. Not going to say he's better than Caleb Martin, but at least he can hold his own a little bit, and he still has a lot of room to improve. And a guy who, a guy who just has, he's a nice, young, promising player, right? And he could grow into something more, as he has shown. But I understand why the Dallas Mavericks did it, because they're looking for win-now players, and they're looking for players that have to win this year. Like Quentin Grimes is not a piece where you say he has to be a starter on a championship team this year. So I am kind of surprised that Morey went out here and swapped for a younger piece, but I think the next couple of days is going to tell us a lot about where the Sixers team and where their head is at. The Mavericks, if I could just step to the side for 1 second here, I think the Mavericks are absolutely insane. I didn't get to really talk about the whole Luka Doncic trade, but for them to go out there and trade a generational talent, obviously there may be some stuff behind the scenes, whether it's conditioning or habit-wise or whatever, but to trade Luka Doncic after you just went to the finals last year and after he carried you through the playoffs and he has given everything to that franchise, and it's not like he was playing with a bunch of stars around him, right? Kyrie they got, but I just think for them to trade for Anthony Davis like that and not even float the idea out to other teams where they probably could have gotten even more talent, a bigger haul, more picks. Something weird is going on in Dallas, and I just don't really know what it is. I think it's really weird what has transpired in Dallas. And then I listened to the press conference a little bit, and the GM said he didn't even consult with the coach or anybody themselves. He just went out and made the move on a gut instinct. So I do think we will hear other things that will come out about the Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic later, but they had to get more starting pieces. And I don't think they're done yet. But the Sixers get a nice young piece back who's 24, who can knock down his threes, and a guy who's a decent defender and is kind of a plug and play piece. So, I can't say I'm happy or mad about it. It signals to me, like Mike O'Connor said on Twitter, that it looks like they're going to try to shed some salary and try to pay Yabusele, maybe. But I'm not mad at getting younger. I mean, you look at the Sixers, they have the oldest roster in the NBA. They can't stay healthy. Caleb Martin is dealing with a hip injury earlier this season. What was it, a foot or an ankle or a pinky? I don't even know. There's been so many injuries on this team. And as of right now, I think where the Sixers are at is they're looking at this team who has been playing some inspired basketball. I know they lost the last couple. Maybe it's because I wasn't here streaming the games, but nonetheless, they've lost the last couple games, and it's because, or at least the games they won before, and even though they lost the last couple games, they've showed more effort. And I think it's because they're giving these young guys a chance to play and explore and just kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit and not be scared that if they don't have a good game, they're going to get benched, So we've been seeing an uptick in Ricky Council and Adem Bona and all these types of guys, Justin Edwards. So, yeah, I think they're trying to ride that young wave a little bit. But let me ask you guys this in the chat. And once again, welcome in. We got 800 people in here, which is amazing on what even is today? Tuesday afternoon. I'm still, getting back into the swing of things. Like I said, I just wanted to go live here to talk about this trade because we have a game later tonight. I wanted to talk about the Luka Doncic trade, which again plays perfectly into this. And we saw De'Aaron Fox and Zach LaVine traded as well. So it has been an interesting turn of events. But let me ask you guys this in the chat right now, and then I'll read some of the comments. If you had to grade this trade off your initial instinct, your initial gut instinct, what grade would you give this trade for the 76ers? What do you think about Quentin Grimes? What do you think about them getting a pick back? We'll see if we can get more information here. Also, I want to read out a couple of the super chats that came in. Thank you all for being here. Please do me a favor and like the show. We don't even have 100 likes yet. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. like the stream, give us a like spike, get the show out there, man, and hit the thumbs up. We have a $2 super chat from Andrew Zell. He says, Quentin Grimes is a better player right now. Then we have Kenny Smith, member for 39 months. He says, I would have been fine with keeping Caleb. And I agree with that. You know, if they had kept Caleb Martin and he had been the guy, you know, to kind of fight through this season and then maybe come back next season and, you know, get back on the floor with maybe the same core, maybe not. Like, it's not like Caleb Martin is 35, 36. You know, he's not the main issue with this team. And I think even through the ups and downs, I still continuously said, like, Caleb Martin is a veteran. He's a role player, but he's a playoff player. And, you know, I wasn't really upset with his performance this year. Like, if we look at Caleb Martin's stats, yeah, he's averaging 9.1 points per game, shooting about 38% from three, but he's also only started in 24 games. And even before he got hurt again, he was starting to come off the bench. So, you know, I feel like he was the least of the worries, in my opinion. When you look at the 76ers, they've won 4 in a row before these last 2. They're starting to play better ball. So they're probably playing themselves out of that top 6 pick that will go to Oklahoma City. And I guess they're trying to come back and play for the playoffs, but there was rumored interest in Caleb Martin the last couple of days. There was even a report this morning. I think it was the Milwaukee Bucks had interest in him. And, you know, the Sixers are going to field a lot of calls on these role players, but the question is, who do they give up? Like, in my personal opinion, I think the next guy they have to give up in the next couple of days is Andre Drummond. As much as I like Drummond, I like his veteran presence and all this and that. The guy has been hurt for, 2-3 weeks now? He's been hurt a lot of the season, and Adem Bona is playing his way into a potential backup center role, and he's looked good with more minutes. Like I said, Council, Edwards, all these guys have started to play better with more opportunities. So, you know, I look at Andre Drummond, and I'm like, what is he doing to help this team right now? Drummond's a guy that should be expendable. If they're going to go down this route now, and they're going to trade these role players, then you might as well just stack up on picks and I guess limp into the play-in, see what you can do. Again, it all goes back to whether Joel Embiid is going to play or not. And Paul George. Now, Joel Embiid was upgraded to questionable for tonight, but is he going to play? Because I'll tell you what, I've started to have a little theory here because I'm seeing Joel Embiid do handstands at practice, and he's been on the floor at practice for 2.5 weeks now? Is he going to play? He has to play. If not, this team has no chance. And I also wanted to talk about a Paul George rumor today, which I'll get to here in just a few minutes. But should the Sixers trade Paul George if they have the opportunity to? We'll talk about that. $2 super chat. Andrew Zally says trading Luka and only talking to the Lakers is very sus. And I agree with that. I think there's some fishy business there. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, let's see some of the grades in the chat here. I see an A, B+, a B, C+, B+ have to keep Yabu though. A. We got a B, an A, a B. Martin has checked out. An F, an A. Let's see. They got Joel doing handstands. Exactly, man. Drummond needs to go. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised here in the next couple days if they do part with Drummond and Oubre and guys like that, just so they can give some of these younger guys the opportunity to go out there and hoop, man, and compete. But all right, man, let's talk about Paul George for a second. Do me a favor, like the show. We got 155 likes now, 912 people in the chat on a Tuesday afternoon as Caleb Martin is officially traded to the Dallas Mavericks. The first domino has fallen for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I want to talk about these Paul George trade rumors, okay? Because like I said, I was going to make a video about it today, and something has to be said about this. Something has to be said. I'm trying to find the quote that came out yesterday that I thought was pretty funny, but here, we can start with this, okay? Should the 76ers trade Paul George? Yes or no in the chat right now. Would you do it? If the right opportunity came up, would you do it? Here was the report that came out yesterday from Keith Pompey. He says the Atlanta Hawks and the Golden State Warriors are showing interest in Paul George. And then there was another quote, which I'm trying to find here, but they said the Golden State Warriors have inquired about every superstar in the NBA that is on a max contract. That's like a summation of the quote. And I started laughing at that because I'm like, what? Because, you know, there's rumors going around. Is LeBron available? Probably not. He wants to play with Luka Doncic now, even though he was blindsided. And the Phoenix Suns are still trying to acquire Jimmy Butler. And the Warriors had initially called about Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy is now saying, no, I do not want to go to the Golden State Warriors. I don't want to go to the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't want to go to any team not named Phoenix Suns. And I'm only going to a team if they pay me a max. So, ladies and gentlemen, if the Golden State Warriors are interested in Paul George, I'm going to tell you right now, Daryl Morey should do whatever it takes to move Paul George to the Golden State Warriors. Now, how could they do that? How could they do that? Let me find this tweet I pulled up yesterday, and let me tell you what the trade should look like. And I'll talk about my thoughts here in a second on the trade. But ladies and gentlemen, if the opportunity came up, this might be your only chance to move off this Paul George contract, which right now does not look like a good contract. So I tweeted this out yesterday as soon as the report came out. PG to the Warriors, Jimmy to the Sixers, and draft picks to the Miami Heat. Now, again, there'd probably be players in that included, like Jonathan Kuminga or, you know, Moses Moody, guys like that. Obviously, I wouldn't want the Sixers to part with Jared McCain or anybody like that, but this could be the template for a deal. And I know you're probably saying, all right, why would Jimmy want to come back to the Sixers? He doesn't want to go to a place that's not 90 degrees and sunshine and they're going to pay him. Here's my mindset from the Philadelphia 76ers standpoint. All right. Number one, we trade for Jimmy Butler. We propose to Jimmy Butler. The rest of the season is what it is. You can play with your best friend, Joel Embiid. You get a chance to kind of, you know, redo whatever happened years ago and try to get one more chance to push forward, right? Maxey, Jimmy, Embiid. I think that would be a good dynamic. If Jimmy Butler comes back and immediately says, no, I am not playing, and I'm Daryl Morey, I say, well, guess what? Take your stuff, go to your coffee shop, sit at home. We don't need you to play. Right now, we are looking really good with these young pieces in here. We're starting to give these guys opportunity. They're showing promise. And then I would say, okay, Jimmy, at the end of this year, you can either accept your player option. There's no guarantee we're going to trade you. But if you do accept it, there's a chance you might be sitting at home next season as well. And if not, you opt out and you go sign with a team in free agency. What does that do for the 76ers? Because a lot of people replied to this and they're saying, well, what Jimmy's too old. He's 35, blah, blah, blah. I get that. I'm not saying Jimmy Butler has to be in the future plans for the 76ers. What I'm saying is when you look at the cap table, let's see if I can get back to the Sixers here. Hold on. Where are we at? Here we go. 76ers cap table, right? This might be your only chance to get off of the Paul George contract because Paul George is making $49.2 million this year. He's making $51.6 next year. And then he'll be making $54.1 million in 2026. And then it's not even until 2027 that you have Paul George in a chance where he might even accept a player option at $56.5 million. So again, the way I'm looking at this as a 76ers person is if you have a chance to get off the Paul George contract, you have to do that. Because the trend and where this team is going is Joel Embiid can't really stay healthy for more than 40 games. Paul George has been injured 6 times in the first half of the season. And Tyrese Maxey right now is playing some of the best basketball of his career. Tyrese Maxey opened up about his frustrations and he said, I'm tired of, feeling like this and my co-stars aren't on the floor. But you know what? I had to get to a point where I was ready to just lock in and do my thing. And Tyrese Maxey has really dialed in. Tyrese Maxey, over his last 10 games, is averaging 33 points a game. He's shooting 38% from three. He looks like a leader, man. He looks to be back. And I'm thinking about a future of Maxey, McCain, maybe Embiid is in that equation in more of a, not a backseat role, but more of like a complementary role, not always having to be the guy. But the Paul George contract, we already knew that there would be a lot of dead weight on the back end. And if this is your only chance to get out of that, looking at his injury history right now, looking at how the season is gone, you have to part with that. So again, it's not just because of a Jimmy Butler, hey, he's better than Paul George in every area, we need him right now, but it's more of a future thing where you can get off the next 3 years of this contract. And that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. Because again, if we look at the Miami Heat, and by the way, we got 1,000 people in the chat. Let's go, man. Drop the 1Ks in here in the chat. Everybody do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up. You guys are killing it right now. But here's Jimmy Butler for next season. $52.4 million player option. And Jimmy is going to be in a situation where, again, if he's going to be a locker room cancer and a disruption, then why have him around? Just trade for him, and say, hey, Jimmy, go sit home. Go sit home, Jimmy. You're good, man. We don't need you to play. We'll get off your money rather than paying Paul George the next 4 years. The Golden State Warriors get their guy that they're apparently looking for. And the Miami Heat get off of Jimmy. They don't have to take on PG. And they get a couple young players to retool with and probably some draft picks as well. So that's my thoughts overall on where the Paul George stuff stands. I'm not saying he's an absolutely atrocious player. I'm not saying he's the worst player in the world, but that contract does not look good right now. All right, couple more things, and then I'll read out some of the comments. Appreciate everybody being in here. If we go back and we look at the Sixers cap table. Now, again, I haven't had any time to do math here. I just literally walked in the door and this happened, so I hopped on here. But now the Sixers have Quentin Grimes, who's making about half the money that Caleb Martin was making. And Quentin Grimes is still on his rookie contract. And he'll be a restricted free agent. His number's at $12.9 million. So, he might play himself into a contract extension. We'll have to see kind of how that plays out. I hope that the Sixers didn't make this move simply to get rid of Quentin Grimes at the end of the season. Now you have a young player that you can kind of build with. Again, he's not like a star or anything, but he's shown a lot of promise, right? So I hope this doesn't turn into a Jalen McDaniels situation where they trade for him and then they just let him walk. Or like Buddy Hield last year, they traded for him, then he walks in free agency. I think you need some more continuity with the roster. And, you get back this piece, you get back a second round pick. But if they're simply doing this just to clear money, then I don't think Caleb Martin was the right guy to do that with. Does that make sense? Like Andre Drummond would have been a way better candidate to just clear the $5 million, trade him to some team that needs a backup center and, move forward like that. Because again, Caleb Martin, I still feel like brings a lot of value. I still feel like Caleb Martin can bring that playoff tenacity and, all the things that we've looked for the last couple of years. And I think he's shown that in glimpses this season. But I also think that everybody's been injured. The season has been a disaster. And, you got young guys playing. Why not? Why not? So, we will see what else comes out from this trade. I'm seeing if there's any other trades that are happening or anything. I think Bobby Marks just tweeted. So let me see if I can pull up Bobby Marks. If you guys see any other like updates on this or any tweets, let me know. But I'm trying to see like what pick that was and things like that, as we still got about 1,100 people here in the chat. Let's see. All right, here we go. Let's see what Bobby Marks says. And I think that the Sixers would have his bird rights, right? Let's see. Quentin Grimes. Player cannot be traded with other players until April 4th. Club option. Yeah, I think they have his bird rights, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll see if they put more out on that. But anyway, like I said, couple contracts that could be traded. I think Drummond, KJ Martin, Kelly Oubre, these guys could be dealt in the next couple days. But if a big superstar trade happens, then that completely throws things out of the equation. But all right, Bobby Marks, financial impact in Philadelphia. The Sixers dropped below the first apron, so they are now no longer a first apron team, which means some of those restrictions, for example, having to take back more than you send out, that no longer applies at the current moment. They are $6.5 million above the tax, and their tax savings go from 16.9 down to 10.2. So could this set up another trade? Possibly. Or could this just be the Sixers ownership wanting to duck the tax like they usually do? Yes. If so, that'll be pretty disappointing, in my opinion. But yeah. Let's see if I can pull this over. What's going on, man? There we go. I think Eric Gordon could definitely be a trade candidate with the way he has played recently. Let's see what else Bobby Marks says here. Financials in Dallas. The trade now pushes the Mavericks back over the tax. They are 4.2 above the tax and $171,000 below the first apron. Includes Caleb Martin taking his trade bonus and factoring in unlikely bonuses. And let's see if we had any other stuff. I think Austin Krell tweeted something. Yeah, there we go. Sixers will have control over him in free agency. So he's a restricted free agency. So, okay, yeah. So, my bad. I forgot he's on a rookie contract. So, they'll have his rookie, his restricted free agent rights, which means they can match any offer. Like if Quentin Grimes, say, the Sixers offer him a contract and then he wants to sign with another team, the Sixers have the right to match that contract because they have his restricted free agent rights, which I think is very, very smart. Dallas reportedly hit an impasse with his contract extension negotiations leading up to the season. So they got off someone who they ostensibly thought they were going to lose and gave up a pick in the process. So seems like both teams, I guess, benefited from what they were trying to do right now. The Dallas Mavericks get a win now vet player if he can get back on the floor. And obviously they're looking to do a lot more now that they gave up Luka Doncic. And the Sixers get a younger player back who they will have rights over in free agency and a guy who can kind of fit the mold of this young crew going forward. So overall, I think both teams made out decently well. Hayden Azanaro, $2 super chat, says you think they could flip Quentin Grimes. They could. Actually, no, I don't think they can. Hold on. Didn't I just say that? Let's see. Let's go back to Quentin Grimes. Oh, he can't be traded as an aggregate player. And he can't be traded back to Dallas, but he definitely could be flipped individually. So that could happen, but I don't think they're going to. I think they're at the point where they're going to sell off some of these vets. I don't know if I've seen enough yet to label them quote unquote sellers because I think that does kind of suck the wind out of them. I mean, a couple things I'm looking for, right? In the next 2 days, today or tonight in a few hours and tomorrow, will Joel Embiid and Paul George play? Paul George has been out for a week and a half with a pinky injury that is not broken. So why isn't he playing? And then Joel Embiid has been upgraded to questionable and has been at practice for 2 weeks now. Will Joel Embiid play? If Embiid and Paul George do not play the next couple of games and they continue to not play, then I think the Sixers are going to chalk up the season and say, you know what? We're just going to sell off some vets here in the next couple of days, try to get some picks back, and fire it up for next season. If Joel Embiid and Paul George do play, then I am a little bit confused as to why they made this move. If they're going to bring them back and try to go full swing, into this, I guess, play-in run or playoffs run. So definitely some things to watch out for. Also, what they do the next couple of days trade-wise, because I don't think that this is the only move that you make. I don't think that this is the only move you make. If this is the only trade you make, that doesn't make sense, right? I said a week ago, you either go all in or you go all out. That's where they're at. And maybe they're trying to free up space so they can sign Yabusele, but that's where I'm at. And it is confusing to give up Caleb Martin on a really good contract if you're not going to go fully in that direction, if that makes sense. Hayden Azanaro, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, in your opinion, do you think they are done making trades? Oh, sorry, I kind of just answered that. But yeah, no, I don't think they're done making trades. I think they have to make a couple more. They got to get Drummond out of here. Oubre, possibly, even though I really like how he's been playing. KJ Martin. I mean, look, if they can, here's another wrinkle to this. If they can trade Caleb Martin while he's been injured for most of the season, then they can trade KJ Martin. Maybe they view him as a part of the future, but KJ Martin on an $8 million contract, he was signed on that purposely to be used in a bigger trade. So KJ Martin is definitely tradable at $8 million. Drummond at $5 million, Oubre. Now you're going in this direction of why not? Caleb Martin was probably my favorite role player out of the handful. So you might as well go out and get more draft picks and a couple younger players and then see what happens moving forward. But again, the big question is, what do you do? Because again, what if the Warriors come across and are like, hey, we'll take Paul George in a big swap? Then I think you do what it takes to free up flexibility in the next couple years, like I talked about with Paul George. So that's kind of where my thoughts are at. But I've very much enjoyed the young players. I've very much enjoyed watching Ricky Council and Justin Edwards and guys like that. So I think they need to give them more opportunity. As I was informed, because I did not go back and watch the game the other night yet, but I was informed that Nick Nurse is still playing the Kyle Lowry, Reggie Jackson lineup, which is ludicrous. And that is partly why the Sixers choked a 26-point lead to the Boston Celtics. And that is very frustrating. But I also look at it where, Joel Embiid is being paid $55 million. Like, get out on the floor. I'm looking at videos of him at practice, and he's moving around just fine. Paul George has a pinky injury. Isn't it on his non-shooting hand as well? So why isn't he out there? Like, there has to be an explanation for what is going on with this Sixers team. Now, again, I'm happy with the product right now with Maxey, becoming that number one, like feeling like it's his team. But that can only take you so far. And as I've alluded to the last couple of weeks, I watched the Rockets and I watched the Thunder and the Grizzlies. The Sixers have the start of a prototype for a team like that with Maxey and McCain and some of these younger guys. So if that's the direction they want to move in, then they have to move off the big contracts. But I am surprised that Daryl Morey traded Caleb Martin on a really good contract for Quentin Grimes and a second-round pick. But I think there's more moves to come. And that's kind of where I see the set. That's where I see the set. So the Dallas Mavericks are insane. There's people on Twitter who have tried to, I guess, put into reasoning why the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic. And if you are a Mavericks fan out there in the chat right now, I feel very, very bad for you. I was trying to explain to the people I was on the trip with what this means, right? Because, they don't watch a lot of basketball. And I was like, imagine if the Sixers woke up today and then traded Tyrese Maxey. Like, what if they just got up and they traded Tyrese Maxey? And you're like, wait, what? Obviously not to the same degree as Luka Doncic yet, but it makes no sense. The Mavericks screwed themselves. Now they're getting a decent role player in Caleb Martin, but there is absolutely no reason to trade Luka Doncic. And I don't want to get into any conspiracies here, but ratings have been down this season. Lakers are a prominent franchise. The Mavericks didn't entertain any offers from anybody else. They just went, hey, one-on-one, here's Luka Doncic. And that's all I'll say about it. That's all I'll say about it. I saw a quote from Mark Cuban, who I thought still had control over decisions with the team, or at least some interest in it. But after he sold his majority share of the Mavs, apparently he doesn't want to do it anymore, which makes sense because there was once a quote where Mark Cuban said, "I would rather get divorced than trade Luka Doncic." That's how infatuated Mark Cuban, the former owner of the Mavs, was with Luka Doncic. And it stunned everybody. Nobody saw it coming. And I think it also does put into perspective that a lot of NBA superstars could be moved. You know, Kevin Durant the other night said, hey, or maybe was it Giannis? I forget who said it, but they were like, hey, if Luka Doncic can get traded out of nowhere, so can I. And I think this should be a message to Joel and PG and all these guys. If you're not doing the thing and Luka Doncic got traded, well, guess what? You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. So those are my thoughts. The Mavericks screwed themselves by trading Luka Doncic. I feel really bad. Anthony Davis is a hell of a player, but he's always injured. Matter of fact, his last Lakers memory is getting injured against the Philadelphia 76ers. And that was last Tuesday or whenever it was. Sorry, I'm all out of whack with my days here. Like I said, I just got in late last night off a plane. Thank you, Sixers, for waiting until I got back for this to happen. But that's where I'm at. So we got a game tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. Funny enough. Maybe Caleb Martin suits up for the Mavericks tonight in a revenge game. Probably not because he's still injured. But yeah, man. Maybe Quentin Grimes can suit up tonight. Revenge game against the Dallas Mavericks. Game tomorrow. Trade deadline on Thursday. I don't think the Sixers are done. And I think there is more to come with this move. Let's see. Who else we got in the chat? Give me your final thoughts on this trade. And once again, we got 1,100 people in the chat right now and 260 likes. So guys, get this up to like 500 likes for me, man. Help me out. Give me some love in the chat. Let's do it, man. You guys have been amazing. I'll be covering everything trade deadline wise. So, be sure to turn on those notifications because we got a lot to talk about over these next couple days, but we're locked in. And yeah, man. Let's see. Who do you guys think won the trade? Let me ask you that. Who do you think won the trade? Sixers or Mavericks? $5 super chat from Brian Pumper. What's up, Brian? Can you imagine if Embiid was tradable? Brother, imagine we got Luka. Sheesh. Yo, and that was the same. I got like 5 texts after Luka got traded. And they were like, man, what would you have given up to get Luka Doncic? And I started to think about that. And I started to really dwell on that. And I'm like, man, if the Mavericks had just floated the idea of trading Luka, what'd they get back? They got back Anthony Davis and a first-round pick. They could have gotten like 5 first-round picks, an all-NBA player. They could have gotten so much. They throw Danny Ainge in the trade. Of course, Danny Ainge, who has to hoard picks. Hey, I'll take a couple second-round picks. Why not? But I'm like, I would have traded Joel Embiid to get Luka Doncic for the next 10 years. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've come to a point where nobody on this team is not expendable. I love Maxey. I love McCain. I think the pairing of Maxey and Doncic, like that would be insane. But Luka Doncic, like the Lakers did this move not to win now. And I think that's where people are getting the wrong idea here. Like I saw some Lakers fans saying, hey, well, we don't have a center now. Yeah, I get that. You might not win this year, but when LeBron retires, you now have a superstar caliber player, like a top 5 player to build around for the next 10 years. So, like Luka Doncic is special, man. And they showed him coming off the plane in LA, and they were starting to say, oh, he was 280 pounds? Nah, I don't think so. There's no way Luka Doncic was overweight and this and that. There's something going on behind the scenes in Dallas that we don't know about yet. $2 super chat from Kenny Smith. He says, tells me that player loyalty is meaningless. Exactly. It's a cold league, It's a cold business. You never know what's going to happen. But I do like Quentin Grimes. I think he has showed a lot of potential. He's just a role player, but he's younger. You have his rights in free agency, even though Caleb Martin was on a very valuable deal. And now you get to build with this guy moving forward who's a decent defender and can knock down his threes and can fill right in at the 2 guard. So, you know, hopefully we see a little bit less of guys like Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry now. That's another question I guess you could ask. Is Nick Nurse going to play Quentin Grimes? He better. He better. Who do you guys think won this trade, man? Gabriel Allen. Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says Grimes could now replace Kyle and Reggie from getting on the floor. There you go. Just said that. Hopefully, Gabriel. Hopefully Quentin Grimes is played by Nick Nurse. Hopefully Nick Nurse experiments with different lineups and plays Quentin Grimes. He better. He better. Let's see. What do you guys think? I see who do you guys think won the trade? Sixers or Mavs? I think they both got what they wanted. I am going to miss Caleb Martin destroying the Boston Celtics. You know, it just didn't live up to it, I guess. He wasn't on the floor enough. At least Quentin Grimes has been healthy this year, knock on wood. I know he was traded to the Pistons last year, but that's because he fell out of the rotation in New York. And I don't really know. I don't know why he fell out of the rotation, but you know, he had a really good showing back in 22. He flashed a lot. So I like it. Let's see. Eric says, I like the trade. Get PG and Embiid out next. D-Fry says, Sixers need to get younger, so I like it. Tired of the team getting older players. Philly Sports Fire says, RB. Philly also got their own second-round pick back in the upcoming draft. Okay, so is that official? Do we have more clarification that it was the pick this year? Okay, there we go. My bad. Didn't see that. Thank you for that in the chat. So the Sixers 2025 second round pick actually comes back to them for this upcoming season. So I think that does make a lot more sense as to why this trade happened. I'm going to go pull up the Sixers future draft picks so we can take a look at them. But Sixers are looking at this draft coming up. And they're saying, hey, this is a pretty talented draft, you know? This is a pretty talented draft. Obviously, second round pick. Who knows where the Sixers are going to finish? Maybe this pick will be a bit better based on how the rest of their season does go. But yeah, it hasn't been updated on here yet. But they will get a pick back for this, and then 2026, because they don't have a first round this upcoming year, but 2026 they do. Their pick only stays with them this year for the first round if they finish in the top 6, which does not look likely to happen now. But yeah, man, 2025 second round pick. Then they'll have 2 firsts in 2026. No first in 2027. They have 2 seconds. And then the 2 firsts in 2028. And this Clippers pick could end up being really good. So that does make a little more sense as to why they made this trade. And getting their pick back is it's pretty nice. Let me ask you guys this. And then we'll wrap it up here because, again, we will be live around 6:40 tonight for the game. We live stream every game, pre-game, live game, post-game. And I just, this news dropped perfect timing. I just got home and I just wanted to, hop on here, give my thoughts. We still got 1,000 people in the chat. So, again, please like the show and subscribe to the channel. And we'll be breaking down everything trade-wise. We'll also be live on Thursday. And I think we're going to go live for about 2 or 3 hours. So if you guys want to come in and hang out as we live react to the trade deadline, please feel free to do that. We'll have the phone lines open. It'll be a lot of fun. Come through on Thursday as well. My question to the chat, my final question here is, what do you think happens next? Who is the next player that the Sixers either trade or acquire? Like, what is next? Are they going full seller mode? Do you think they're going to buy players now? Do you think there's a realistic chance Paul George could get moved? Embiid's probably not going to get moved unless we get another out of the blue, trade at 2 a.m. I don't see that happening. But what do you think is going to happen next? What do you think is going to happen next? $5 super chat from Brian Pumper. He says, we need to trade Paul George now. Send him to the desperate Warriors. I will take Kuminga and Kyle Anderson and 2 first-rounders. Yeah. I don't think that will happen. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. I think, if anything, I think the Heat get involved in a 3-team trade if they can work it out financially, because Jimmy Butler doesn't want to go to Golden State, and he obviously doesn't want to come to Philly. But I think another thing that needs to be said is, like, if you're Miami, who cares what Jimmy thinks? The way Jimmy has handled this situation is insane. You had a trade to maybe send him to the Grizzlies. He said no. You had a trade to send him to Miami or to Golden State. He said no. So if Jimmy doesn't like the idea of playing with Joel and Maxey, again, he wants that next contract. Nobody's going to be able to give it to him. The Phoenix Suns cannot move Bradley Beal unless he agrees. He can't move unless he agrees to waive that no trade clause in Phoenix. And now we're hearing the Suns might be willing to trade Kevin Durant. Could Durant be on the move? Guys, this is shaping up to be the craziest trade deadline maybe ever, other than that one, I think it was 2 years ago when Durant and all of them got traded. So the way Jimmy's handling this situation, I know his agent is trying to push to get him to Phoenix, but if they can't move him, then Miami might just say, you know what, we're trading you where we want to trade you. You can figure out the rest. And in that scenario, I think PG going to Golden State, who wants a forward, who needs a star to play with Steph Curry, Jimmy coming to the Sixers, and if he doesn't play here, the Sixers can free up the next 3 years of flexibility by getting off that Paul George contract, and Miami getting young players from the Golden State Warriors along with draft picks makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense, but that is why I'm just here talking about it on my YouTube show and not a GM. Let's see, man. $5 super chat. Brian Pumper, he says, don't worry about Jimmy. He is chasing tails in Phoenix. He's in love with Sato. I'll take anything. Give me G Santos for PG straight up. Shout out to Guy or G Santos. Didn't that guy cook the Sixers one time off the bench for Golden State? Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. You got to match salaries and do a bunch of that stuff. If I had to give a gut instinct right now of what the Sixers do, I think they trade off a couple more vets. I don't think they're going to make the big splash move that everybody wants, but I also think this is probably their only chance to get off the PG contract. So if there was an opportunity, they do it. They do it. So like I said, one more time, here's the look at the Sixers cap table. Oubre, $8 million this year, got a player option next year. Drummond, $5 million, a player option next year. And then KJ Martin, $8 million, and he's on that balloon contract. They're all scheduled to hit unrestricted free agency in 26. Then you got some of the older guys that nobody probably wants, but this is the gem right here. Gershon Yabusele. Like I said, I didn't watch the last game yet, but I know he played very well yet again, and he is putting himself on the map. Gershon Yabusele is earning more money every single game, and he is a very, very, very valuable player. And if you can keep Gershon Yabusele past this year, you have to find a way to do it. You have to find a way to keep Yabusele if possible, because he has been that good. Like, we've talked about role players over the years, and we've, asked ourselves, even Oubre last year, right? Like, hey, how do we get this gem? And how do we get these guys to keep playing like this? Yabusele has those traits that can move forward into the next couple years. Now, again, you can't overpay him, but if you can give him a figure and maybe he's willing to take maybe a slight haircut for Philly giving him the opportunity, you got to find a way to keep him. You have to find a way. Let's see. Julian in the chat says, RB, who do you think is next? Dude is out with a pinky injury on his non-shooting hand. That's crazy, man. I can't believe he's still out. I can't believe he's still out. I think if I had to guess which player gets traded next, I think it's Andre Drummond. I think it's Drummond because I think with the emergence of Adem Bona, even if Bona doesn't live up to that backup center role the next couple years, Drummond has just been very, very bad. Very disappointing. I was completely wrong. I thought he would be a lot better, and you want to get off his contract. So that's what I think. I think Drummond's next if they make another move, or maybe Eric Gordon as well, who is shooting like 40-something% from three since the new year. See if we have any more updates, and then we'll chalk this one up. But the Sixers' first domino has fallen. Caleb Martin is now a Dallas Maverick. He is now on a team that is trying very hard to win their fan base back and is trying to find just, vet role players like this to complement Kyrie and Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson. So the Sixers are getting younger and they're shedding salary. Maybe we're all overthinking this, and this is just a simple, let's get under the tax line move. I really hope that's not it. Let's see if they've updated the numbers here. Here we go. Yeah, they shot at the spot track, man. They already updated this, but first apron space. So now the Sixers sit 472,000 below the first apron. So again, all those restrictions that we've talked about do not apply right now because they are now in the tax and under the first apron. So maybe this is where they sit. And right now there's 6.4 million over the tax line. So they might trade a couple more pieces, try to get below here so that Joshua Harris doesn't have to pay tax. But we'll see. We'll see, man. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for coming through here on a Tuesday afternoon. We had almost 1,200 people in here, so thank you very much. And nice to be back. Nice to be back with the best in the world. So appreciate everybody, man. Tune in live with me later tonight as the Sixers take on the Dallas Mavericks. And we'll see what else happens in the next 48 to 72 hours. Appreciate everybody, man. RB out. Philly Take with RB. Like the show on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. And turn on those noties, man. Turn on those noties. We'll have videos, live streams, and more. First domino is fallen. RIP Caleb Martin, man. Good dude, by the way. Good guy. Good dude, man. See what happens next. Catch you on the next one. Peace.